Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me once again today, and welcome to this mess. So, why, you say, am I looking at a completely garbage Pretender God? Well, it's because I'm starting a new game. Yes, I know, I'm already in several Dominions 5 games, several of them are even being recorded, but I'm starting a new one because I just couldn't pass up the concept, because it struck me as hilarious. So first of all, I'm playing Early Age Ulm. This is an early age game. I will be playing Ulm. Which I've been wanting to do for a while, because I actually have not played Ulm in Dominions 5 multiplayer. I played him in Dominions 4 a little bit. But between 4 and 5, they changed pretty significantly. And it will be interesting to play them, on top of which, I want to actually try out the skeletons in multiplayer, because I've never done that before. But, not content with just playing like a game of Dominions 5, I decided to join a random Pretender Gods game. So the way this worked was, the admin of the game generated Pretender Gods randomly and showed them to you, and you got a chance to reject one. You could reject 2 in a row, but you'd be stuck with the third one, and he would post it publicly for everyone to see. This was the second god I got. The first one was similar, but absolutely garbage, like a rainbow all the way across, a huge enormous bless, and garbage scales. This one is merely not great. So the chassis here is the Master Enchanter, who's the special thing is he's a Farcaster. He starts with 1 level of nature magic. He has a whole bunch of paths, including some that just don't matter or make sense, really. He has a pretty big rainbow bless that isn't very relevant to Ulm because your sacreds aren't impressive or useful. He's imprisoned, so he's not going to wake up for 3 years, which is a bummer, but not as big a bummer as it could be, given what he is. The reason I picked him is because his scales are actually pretty good. We've got Order 3, Production 3, so lots of income. We do have positive growth, which the first god that I got did not. He had like Death 1, which is just a death sentence in a long game. Growth 1 is not a death sentence. It's not great, but it'll help a little bit. Neutral luck, and 2 magic, which will help my cheap, low research point human researchers be very effective. Like Warrior Smiths will give me 11 research points for 110 gold, which is a decent trade. Shamans will give me 9 research points for 130 gold, but they're sacred, so their upkeep is only 52, and 9 research points for 52 upkeep ain't bad. So, on top of that, this guy hits one of the characteristics that I consider very important for an Ulmish god to have, especially in the late game, which is he has Death 4. Death 4 means that this god can forge himself a booster and then summon immortals. He can cast every death spell in the game, he can forge every death item in the game with sufficient boosting. He also has Astral Nature and Blood, all of which are nice. Potentially in the late game I could help use this guy to kick me into Blood if I get some Blood independence. He can forge most of the blood boosters as well. He doesn't have earth magic, which is unfortunate because it means he can't possibly forge bloodstones. That's a bit of a bummer. But beyond that, he's got a lot of good things going for him. Now, he's imprisoned, which I would not... Let me put it this way. I would not choose that. Probably if I was doing a chassis like this, I would make him dormant, and I would shift scale. I would accept slightly worse scales, kind of shift these around, probably take Turmoil or Neutral Order, higher growth, you know, drop the water in the fire for sure. And, you know, I would definitely optimize this chassis in a very, very different way. But for a god created by the random generator, it's not bad. I can live with it. It will give me a lot of money. It will give me a lot of resources and recruitment points, so I'll be able to pump out a lot of my cheap multi-attack troops to buff. It'll give me good research, and when he wakes up, he'll give me the ability to cast a lot of high-level, powerful sorcery spells and do a lot of summoning that I otherwise can't do. For example, this guy with boosters can summon Lamia Queens eventually. He can forge the Moonvine Bracelet and the Thistle Mace, and so he can boost himself up to Nature 5 and summon Lamia Queens. If I get the Blood Slaves, he can summon Vampire Lords out of the box. He can, as I said, summon Wraith Lords and Liches and Mound Fiends. So he's gonna provide good value for me when he wakes up. I will have to lean on my scales and my troops in order to survive the early game. I have done a couple of tests with this guy. One unfortunate thing is my expansion is not the ideal Skeleton Ulm, viral expansion, because I don't have the Undead Command Bless. And that means that the only guys who can lead my skeletons are also the guys who summon the skeletons, the death random shamans. And if they random 1 point of death, they can only lead 30. So you can't mass up huge armies of skeletons without that Undead Leadership Bless. Now, once you've researched enchantment, just a couple of levels, you can summon Mound Kings who have significant Undead Leadership, and they can lead your skeletons, but that's a little ways in the future. So, this is my Pretender God. The game will be starting very, very soon. I'm going to kind of stitch this together with the first turn, and we'll just kind of see how it goes, won't we? I already know the gods of several other players. I know Kajukin's in this game. I know his god. The admin Prey, I know his god because he posted it publicly, as kind of as security for the people whose gods he was generating. I know a couple of the other players that I haven't really played with before. It's going to be a fun game. We've got 12 nations, all random gods, so we're going to see a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of weird blesses, a lot of interesting scales. It's going to affect strategy in a number of far-reaching ways that you wouldn't necessarily think of. So, stay tuned. More of this game will be coming up, definitely. By the time this goes up, Once More Into the Breach should be over, so I should have a little bit more time for it. Kind of have to juggle things going into the future to make sure I have time to do everything I want to do on the channel. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time behind the camera to record and upload 2 videos a day, at least not at anything like the length I'm usually uploading videos, and I will be paring the length of videos back very slightly. I don't... Just because the ones that I've got going on right now are just too long, and they take too much effort and too much time, too much recording time per video, given that I also have to work a job. So, yeah, should be a good time. In any case, I'll see you in turn 1. Alright, so it's about to be turn 1 of the Ulm Random Pretender Gods game, and in case you didn't know this, I want to show you how you connect to a direct host game. So there's 2 ways of playing multiplayer games in Dominions 5. There's play by email, which is what I usually do, where you get a file emailed to you, you put it into a folder, and then you go to continue old game, open up your game that has the folder, the name of the folder that you put the file into, and then play your turn, end your turn, email it back to Llama server, and it runs it for you. The other way is under Network, where you connect to a Dominion server or set up your own server. The most popular one is snake.earth, which is a dedicated Dominion server. That's where I'm playing the Disciples of YouTube game. This was an old game that I was playing with a friend of mine, and that was just a little connection test. So we're going to connect to a Dominion server. We type in snake.earth, which is the name of the Earth Snake server. And then a port number. The port number I've been given for this game is 30177. And here we go. These are the nations of the game. Now, if they followed instructions, everyone in this game should have passworded their file. So I am Ulm. I did password my file. There's going to be a cut here as I put in my password because I'm not going to show it off to all y'all. And we are in. So you can see here, this shows you all the nations that are in the game, whether they have played their turns or not. So you can see Hinnom, Rus, Tirnanog, and Marverni have all already played their turns. It shows you how long you have until the next host and what the turn number is. The game name is Accidental based on, of course, the random Pretender Gods. So I am playing as Ulm. So when I logged in, my god has already been uploaded. I named my god Irminsul, by the way, which is the name of the giant tree Pretender chassis. Just a little cheeky misdirection there. So it downloaded the map, it downloaded the Pretender God, which had already been uploaded, and you can see my scales are here. Yep, that all looks in order. And it downloaded all the information that it needs for the game. So this is the map. The map has a big old lake right here, and that's the only water. There are a couple of underwater nations in the game. We do have Atlantis. We have Baratos, which is a coastal nation. And what else did we have? I thought we had another underwater. We did not, I guess. So, for Archocephali, we have Queen of Rock, Twisted Sprinkler for Ermor, Early Age Ermor. I don't see that very often. Irminsul, Old Guy with a Stick for Marverni. Gitsnack for Mictlan, Angela Thistlebottom for Calum, Why Is This Freak Leading Elves for Ternanog, Phallus for Niflheim, Raven of the Slav World for Rus, Not an AC Caster for Hinnom, Kufladen for Wizard Master General for Baratos, Twister for Atlantis, and Because Good Scales Are Good for Theridos. So like I said, I already know what some of the Pretender Gods here are. To be fully honest, I don't remember all of them right at the moment. I remember that Kajuken got an Awake Mother of Monsters. Prey, who is playing... God, what nation was he playing? Yeah, Prey is Rus. If you see a little flicker here, it's because I'm alt-tabbing back and forth to remind myself of who's doing what. Rus. Yeah, Raven of the Slav World. Prey got a Raven of the Underworld with Death 10 and the Fear Bless, which is not exactly what Rus wants necessarily, but, I mean, it works. I guess it's kind of an expander. Kajuken got, like I said, a Mother of Monsters, an Awake one, and he's playing Arcocephale. So once again, another weird choice, another weird, generation for Arcocephale, because Arcocephale does not necessarily need all that, but Early Age Arcocephale is a very interesting nation, to be honest. They've got these flying troops, the Icarids. They've got chariots, they've got wind riders who are sacred, basically sacred independent Amazon Pegasi, except with higher protection and slightly higher defense skill. Mage-wise, they've got philosophers who have improved research in sloth and less research in productivity, which is funny. They've got priestesses, which are healers, some of the only actual healers in the game. There's only a couple of others. There's like 3 or 4 units in the game that have this ability. They heal all afflictions, 3 of them per month. They have mystics, which are astral random mages that are quite powerful. Mage engineers, who have the engineer abilities and the mason ability, so they can upgrade forts a little bit higher. And of course, Oreads, they're slow to recruit capital only, who are seducers with high awe, stealth, recuperation, and very, very high paths. So Arcocephale is not a bad nation, to be fully honest. Unfortunately, they do have these skeptics that are heretics, which they can kind of sneak into other people's territory. Those are annoying. And they have engineers, which are masons with a siege bonus. So lots of cool stuff for Arcocephale. Early Age Urmor, I don't know that we've talked about really. Early Age Urmor is Rome, basically. And they have, like, story-wise, Urmor here is in their expansion phase. They've conquered parts of the swamps of Satis and taken them over and enlisted lizard auxiliaries. They have Equite of the Sacred Shroud, which are what turns into the Knights of the Unholy Sepulchre when they die. They have the Pontifex, who can be recruited anywhere and has high priests and a little bit of fire magic, not terribly important. They have the Flamen, who are the same but also random elemental magic. Their main priest dude is the Archbishop of the Sacred Shroud, who is another of the very, very few healer units in the game. They also have the Bishops, who are priest level 2. They have the Augur Elders. Augur Elders have Fire, Astral, and Death, which is an extremely potent combination. They are slow to recruit, and can only be recruited in the capital. So there's that. Oh no, Augur Elders are slow to recruit, but can be recruited anywhere. The regular Augurs have Fire and Astral, and the Acolytes are just little priest dudes. They do have recruitable assassins. They're just standard human assassins, and troop-wise, they have basically Romans. So standard human troops with high defense skill because they have large shields and kind of middle and average protection. Principes are probably their ideal soldier. They're pretty good. Triarii would be good, except they're old, and so they lose stats for being old, which makes them honestly not all that great. They do have very high protection, so they're tough and have high morale. They also have the standards that can increase people's morale, so generally decent troops, very, very solid. They get Fire and Astral. They're better than the other Fire and Astral nations, like Middle-Age Marignon, because they also have Death, and they have access to native Death 3 from Augur Elders with a random. That opens up a whole lot of stuff to them. Of course, thematically, these are the people who accidentally broke into the underworld and destroyed the Empire and turned it into Middle Age Ermor, which was the Skeleton Apocalypse. But anyway, not a bad nation. A little bit slow to an extent, but having recruitable Holy 3 is pretty good. And having recruitable healers is pretty good. And having, you know, communions with death magic is really good. So they've got a lot of options. I don't know what their god is. Why is this freak leading elves? Tir Nanog, we've talked about Tir Nanog before. They're not one of the stronger races, but they're not bad. They're basically just error in nature and error in nature and error in nature and more error in nature. They do have the, not the Banshee. Well, I mean, the Banshee are good. They're stealthy. That is a nice, nice quality to have. And their Sea Champions, of course, are stealthy, and they have Firbolg Druids. Ah, these ones. I can't pronounce that. It's Gaelic. I don't know how to pronounce it, but they have these ladies. These are like fantastic assassins. They're assassins. They're spell singers. They're incredibly stealthy. They have glamour, and they have air 2. Which means it's entirely possible that one of these ladies will just walk up to your commander and lightning bolt him to death round 1. Well, it'll actually be round 2 because she's a spell singer, but still, she can start casting lightning bolts or whatever and just not stop. Also, life drain melee attack, not too shabby. So they're very solid. Also, they're just cheap for an air 2. You can mass these ladies anywhere pretty quickly and use them as Thunderstrike batteries, backed up with a Re or a Tuatha Sorceress to cast Storm. Beyond that, what early age nation have we not talked about much? We actually haven't talked about Niflheim much, and we do need to do that. Kalem is birds that fly that do mainly air magic. It looks like they randomed a Death Pretender. Eagle Kings are amazing because they start with air 4 just automatically. Beyond that, Area Seraphs are Air 2, Water 1. Once again, Air 2 is a great path to have. Kalem's mid-game is basically you mass Area Seraphs, you deploy an army of them with one Eagle King, the Eagle King casts Storm, and then all the Area Seraphs just Thunderstrike until your problems go away, basically. They also have the Harab Seraphs. Harab Seraphs can be Death 2, which is nice. Death is still not a major path for Kalem, but they can get up to Death 3 and summon Mound Fiends and stuff like that. Fun fact, Kalem does have National Skeletons, but their National Skeletons are objectively worse than normal skeletons, because they don't wear armor, and they are size 3 because of the wings. So, it's just kind of like an upraised middle finger. Otherwise, they're just flying birds, basically. They can most of them, not all of them, but most of them can fly in storms. The Kavi can fly in storms, the Spirehorn troops can fly in storms. The Meria Warriors cannot, but the Meria Warriors are stealthy and sacred with a lance attack. A flying lance attack is incredibly dangerous. Also, they have recruitable mammoths, which are good for early expansion because they have a lot of hit points and can trample and are very large. So that's Kalem. They're quite straightforward. They're not a complicated faction. If you wanted to start learning how to play Dominions, Kalem is not a bad choice. You will kind of hit a wall once you realize that your troops are fragile and will tend to die, but you can work past that, and it'll kind of give you an introduction without a whole lot of complexity. There's Niflheim, Rus, Hinnom, Baratos, Atlantis, Arquisfale, Ermor, Me, the Marverni, the Mictlan, and Therados. So, Therados is the other underwater race. Therados starts on islands. They are a pop kill nation. Looks like they've gotten some death, and they may have also gotten some air. I think that's what Messenger of the Gods is. It's a reference to Hermes. And they free spawn ghosts, and they have some recruits that are pretty decent. The Kabairos are not bad mages, especially since they can random Earth 2, and they have a Forge bonus. The Hecatorides are quite decent. Really quite decent. Nature and water. If they random Earth, they can cast Gaia's Blessing, or Strength of Gaia on themselves. And they reduce unrest and are inspirational commanders, which is nice. The Dactyls are very, very good mages, albeit they do suffer a little bit from chronic wide path syndrome, but they also have a Master Smith bonus, which means they can do a lot of forging for you. And the Melias are pretty solid recruitable thug chassis. I mean, they start off with nature and holy, they're sacred, they can be blessed. If they get air or water, or, I mean, any of these allow them to cast some pretty decent buffs on themselves. They have awe, they have recuperation. They're pretty solid. If you need a recruitable thug chassis, you could do a lot worse than a Melia. Only real strike against them is they're not stealthy and they can't move fast. So, you know, they're not quite as good as, say, Colossi Storm Captains, but they're pretty decent. Troop-wise, the Kurites are actually pretty good, especially because they go berserk when they're blessed. They would be a lot better if they had more than one attack, especially because they are anti-formation fighters, so they can't pack 3 of them into a square like most size 2 units can. So they've got that problem. Also, they're magic beings, so they require magical leadership, which means your standard commanders can't lead them. You have to take Melias or Hecatorides to lead them. I think I just pronounced that word 2 different ways inside of 5 minutes. Koribants are like the sucky, weaker human version of them that just have worse stats across the board, but they can be recruited on any coastal fort. So Therados, if they want to take a really big bless, which often they do, but of course they probably haven't done that here because they have a random pretender. If they get a really big bless, it's entirely possible to use Koribants very, very heavily, but we'll see what's happened there. They do get a lot of gem income. One thing that I anticipate seeing in this game, since we have random pretenders, I anticipate seeing a lot of people with luck scales, and so probably a lot of people with national heroes, which will be pretty cool. That's not terribly useful. That's not terribly usual, not useful. It can be very useful, but it's not very usual. So, we are led by Irminsul, the Sovereign of Sin, God of Terror. Wow. That's so bad sounding. I'm so evil. Well, I mean, I am going to drown the world in skeletons, so, you know. So, this is your standard Ulm opening. You, why did I keep clicking that button? You recruit a shaman, and you start pumping out as many Steel Maidens as possible. Steel Maidens are fantastic. They're like I said in my Ulm analysis, they're like really, really, really cut price Vanheers. They're much worse than Vanheers, but they're also much cheaper, and they're stealthy. So you just spam them out, and they can kill most independents without too much trouble. I do have something of a bless. Like, I have Withering Weapons and Blood Surge. So Steel Warriors wouldn't be awful, but I'm not going to recruit them because they're expensive. Like, 28 gold. I could have literally 2 Steel Maidens for that price, and 2 Steel Maidens would utterly shank a Steel Warrior. So, if I need them, I'll recruit them if, like, Hinnom is coming at me with giants or something, because then Withering Weapons becomes useful. Guso is going to become the Prophet, and Arnwald, not Armwald, is going to move out. Mercenaries. We do have the Raiders of the Silver Steppe, who... Ooh, actually, that's kind of tempting. You know what? I'm going to try to get him. I'm going to try it. I'm just going to throw in what gold I can. Because getting 20 Sorrowmation Cavalry, which is what that looked like that was, in exchange for giving up recruitment of like 4 or 5 Steel Maidens, I'll buy that for $1. I think that'd be worth it. This army will be able to expand at least a couple provinces anyway, with those Steel Maidens backing them up. And then Guso casting. I honestly forget what my custom priest spells are, so... Well... Yeah, this doesn't tell me either. Anyway, we will find out how this game goes. It should be a very interesting experience. So, thank you all so much, and I'll see you in turn 2.